They paved paradise and put up a parking lot with a pink hotel, a boutique, and a swinging hot spot. Said, don't it always seem to go when you don't know what you've got till it's gone? You pay paradise, they put up a parking lot. They took all the trees and put them in a tree museum. And they charged all the people $1.50 just to see them. Don't it always seem to go when you don't know what you've got till it's gone? They pay paradise and put up a parking lot. Hey, farmer, farmer, put away that DDT now. I don't care about spots on my apples, but leave me the birds and the bees. Don't it always seem to go when you don't know what you've got till it's gone? You pay paradise to put up a parking lot. Late last night, I heard the screen door slam, and the big yellow taxi took away my old man. Don't it always seem to go when you don't know what you've got till it's gone? They paved paradise and put up a parking lot. They paved paradise and put up a parking lot. They paved paradise and put up a parking lot.
Awesome. Thank you so much, David. That was great. That was a great way to start our morning. Good morning and welcome to Cedar Lane. I am the Reverend Dayna Edwards, and my pronouns are she and her. And we gather today from different places at different times, different spaces and different devices. We gather in person and online as a religious community united in our commitment to make love work. Make love work in our lives and make love work in the world. We want to have a special welcome this morning to the members of our Potomac partner, the River Road Unitarian Universalist congregation, who are joining us in worship today. Welcome online and in person for those of you who are joining us.
Buenos días y bienvenidos. I am the Reverend Katie Romano Griffin. My pronouns are she or ella, and we gather today as we have for over 70 years on the traditional lands of the Nacotchtank people, from which the name Anacostia is derived. They are a part of the Piscataway group of tribes, and we honor with gratitude the land itself and the people who've protected it throughout the generations.
We gather in remembrance of those who were enslaved and worked this land without choice or reward. We gather today in gratitude for all who have gone before us, whose love and labor helped create and sustain the mission and ministry of this religious community.
Thank you for taking the time and for taking the risk to worship with us today. If you're new or if you feel new, you are invited to complete a newcomer form in the chat. And if you're here with us online, if you wanted to raise your hand, our ushers and greeters have a little something for you. And if you've been attending for a while, if you're interested in becoming a member of this religious community, please do reach out to Nicole Singer, our membership coordinator.
Our pastoral visitors are an extension of our ministry team. Barbara Tomar is our pastoral visitor this morning, and she's available for you in person, and also there are pastoral visitors who are present in the chat online. And as we do every Sunday, we are about to engage in the spiritual practice of church announcements.
I was actually hoping that I could get a drum roll, please. All right. I hope everyone's drum rolling at home. We have a benefit concert tonight at 4 p.m. Now, Cedar Lane has been doing benefit concerts since 2009. We've raised over $55,000 $1,000 for important organizations that are helping to live out our values, the values that we share with these organizations in the world. And the recipient that we have tonight is particularly important as they're meeting a critical need in our community right now. It's Mid-County United Ministries. They help people keep the lights on. They help when there's times of crisis in rent. And their in-person and mobile food pantries are helping to feed over 1,000 people and growing each and every month. And we have some musicians that I think you're really going to enjoy. Elliot Beck and Eric Plewinski on percussion, Dr. Jasmine Lee and Dr. Shuai Wang on piano, Jenny Lynn Moyer, Rachel Moore, Kevin Miller, and there'll be a piece that is featured that was written by Unitarian musician Bela Bartok.
Yeah, you didn't know that, did you? Now you know.
Reverend Dayna remembered.
That's what we, religious educators, that's what we do. We remember things like that. And on Saturday, April 30th, you're invited to join us to help one of our neighbors as part of our program to rebuild together in Montgomery County. So if you're interested in doing some hands-on work to improve the housing conditions of one of our Montgomery County neighbors, I invite you to, right now, take your cell phone and go on the Connect app. And if you go on the Connect app, you can find events. And on events, if you click See All Events, you'll see where you can register to participate and rebuild together. And so that's a chance for us to come together as a community. We're looking for 30 volunteers to come together to help rebuild our neighbor's house on April 30th. So we hope you will join us.
Thank you so much, Reverend Dayna. And if you don't have Connect on your phone, or if you don't have a cell phone or a phone that does that sort of thing, know that you can access that information on your computer as well through Realm. After the service, you are invited to gather in the library for an important conversation with one of the leading experts on climate justice, who also happens to be our board president, Nate Haltman. Dr. Nate Haltman. Dr. Nate is the founder and director of the Center for Global Sustainability at the University of Maryland and professor in the School of Public Policy. He's been there from 2014 through 2016. Nate worked at the White House on the Obama administration's climate and energy policy team, and it is a gift to be in conversation with someone who is a climate and energy expert. I hope that you will join us in the library after service for this important conversation.
Yes, it should be a good one. And finally, if you're interested in solar energy, we invite you to check out the table in the lounge where there will be a representative from Neighborhood Sun. So if you're interested in learning more about Neighborhood Sun and their work on solar energy, please go to the lounge and visit them after the service. And now is our time when we can meet and greet each other in person and online in the chat. Let us greet our neighbors. Sit down wherever you are and listen to the wind singing in your veins. Feel the love, the longing, the fear in your bones.
open your heart to who you are right now, not who you would like to be, not the saint you are striving to become, but the being right here in front of you, inside you, around you. All of this is holy. You are already more and less than what you can ever know. Breathe out, touch in, let go. Let us worship.
And my pronouns are he and him, the worship associate for today's service. I now invite Kathleen Holme, Lee McNair, and Nancy Wilkinson to please come forward to light the chalice. So as Kathleen Holme, Lee McNair, and Nancy Wilkinson kindle a chalice, please share in the chat where you're lighting your chalice from. Please rise in body or in spirit to share the chalice writing words. The fire of love burning deep in every human heart calls us to awaken. Work of compassion, awaken to the work of community, for in this time of human suffering, exaltation, we are called beyond awakening into action. May the chalice flame we now light guide our hearts in service to a greater good that holds living things in its holy embrace. Thank you.
My name is Rosie Clemens-Cope, and thank you to Cedar Lane for inviting us to this gathering. I'm an 8th grader and climate activist at Julius West Middle School in Rockville. The climate emergency is the greatest threat of our time, and so youth and our allies are rising up and organizing actions all over the county. Here's an update of what we've done recently. Over the year, my sister and I continued organizing with the Sunrise Movement for Political Action and Fridays for Future weekly climate education at school. We also work with the MoCo Green New Deal internship program, primarily for BIPOC high school students. I've also been running weekly Fridays for Future events at my new public middle school over the year. These events have grown from dozens to a few hundred students every week, and the topics I cover are heavy. The United Nations IPCC reports, the meaning of solidarity and collective action, oil pipelines, and Indigenous peoples' rights. So by now, my Fridays for Future friends know about the climate science, climate justice, and the climate action we need. And then about 2 weeks ago, we organized with the Green New Deal interns to have a rally at the MCPS school board to bring attention to our climate petition, with demands including that MCPS buy 100% renewable energy. Some of my Fridays for Future group walked from our school to the Board of Education, where we met adult allies from XR, Extinction Rebellion, Downs of Peta from Declare Emergency, and Indigenous water protectors from the West, including the amazing Raymond Kingfisher from the North Cheyenne tribe. These folks had just arrived that day for their 2 weeks of climate actions in the DMV, and as their very first action, they came to our MCPS school board protest in Rockville. My middle school friends had never seen an act of civil disobedience before, but that day they saw this group of allies stop traffic and get arrested for our school board demands. Here was a group of human beings that so much has been taken from, willing to fight the fiercest for our local climate demands. It was a lesson for all of us in solidarity and humility. And it really makes you think that in Glasgow, Scotland last November, when world leaders decided that 1.5 degrees of warming was not something they were willing to do. What gives people in power the right to give up? What gives them the right when the people who are most affected by climate change are traveling 2,000 miles from where they live and fighting in the streets for better local climate policies? The students who saw the sacrifices of our adult allies that day were inspired, and on Earth Day 2 days ago, my middle school got 1,500 students, the whole school, outside for a Fridays for Future climate protest. Until that day, 2 days ago, most students did not know that the climate crisis threatens all of our futures and their own. But now the truth is out, and I'm here to say that we have hit a social tipping point. Please join us, friends. Thank you.
And I'm her sister. My name is Eleanor Cope, she, her pronouns, and I'm a senior at Richard Montgomery High School in Rockville. Climate action on a national level may feel unlikely right now, with Biden's sudden shift to maximize drilling, big dollar fossil fuel donations, and Joe Manchin's veto power. But the federal government isn't the only thing that matters. This year, lots of organizations stepped back from national policy to do local organizing, because local people power creates local policy, setting the precedent for state policy, then national policy, and even international policy. The local actions Rosie talked about have drawn the attention of county and state politicians. Right now, we are working with them to make MoCo a climate policy leader. Our community can be very effective, and I have a few suggestions for how UUs can engage. First, we need to shift focus away from personal choices. More environmental personal choices are the right thing to do, but they won't bend the climate curve. In a carbon-neutral world, yes, people will eat less beef, but taking away government subsidies for beef can make that happen on the scale and with the speed that we need. The impact of our personal choices are nothing compared to the impact that we can make through local, state, and national policy change. And people are lied to and shamed about this every day. Even Bill Nye has a video telling kids the real science of climate change, but then saying that the solution is to reduce, reuse, recycle. But we're not stupid. We can see when a problem and a solution don't match. So it's time for policy change. That brings me to my second point. UUs need to get serious about participating in people power. Our schools teach the gospel of individualism. They literally call it the power of one. But UUs know that that is just not true. Behind every huge social change is a humongous network of activists working together and annoying each other for years. A dozen great climate organizations already exist. We have Sunrise, XR Youth 350, the Climate Mobilization, Montgomery County Faith Alliance for Climate Solutions, and the Cedar Lane Environmental Justice Ministry. So please don't start your own organization, even for your kids, which is a thing that I've seen some UUs doing right now, because you may not ever agree 100% with any organization, but you just have to join together with some friends, tap into the resources of an existing group, and get your boots on the ground. And that brings me to my final point, which is just get out there. Go join any climate group and go to any climate event that you can. Some folks just always show up for Climate Youth. Shout out to Nancy Wilkinson for that. And it's amazing. We all need to be more like Nancy. So act local, act together, and act now. Because we aren't waiting for politicians. We count on us. and we are going to save our futures. So are you in?
Please rise in body or in spirit to sing hymn number 352. Come sing a song with me. Come sing a song with me. Come sing a song with me. Come sing a song with me, that I might know you're mine. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Come dream with me, sorry. Come dream a dream with me. Come dream a dream with me, that I might know you're mine. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Come walk in rain with me. Come walk in rain with me. Come walk in rain with me, that I might know you're mine. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Come share a rose with me. Come share a rose with me. Come share a rose with me, that I might know you're mine. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time.
Good morning. Let us center ourselves and enter into this moment, calling upon all the sources of love that are within, among, and around us. We gather in sacred space across time and space, a sanctuary amid the many challenges of life, a center from which we may gather strength to face these challenges with courage and hope, faith, and love. Within our Cedar Lane community, we invite you to the celebration of life for beloved member and former Alliance President Arlene Green on Friday, April 29 at 2 p.m. The service will be both in person and online. Our caring extends beyond Cedar Lane to others whose lives are lost and whose lives are impacted by violence, calamities, and the COVID-19 pandemic in our nation and in our world. We continue to join in solidarity with so many around the world and pray for the people of Ukraine. Our hearts go out to those who are enduring devastating loss of life, violence, and displacement. And we pray for an immediate end to all wars. May these friends of ours, our companions in the world, and all the joys and sorrows we hold in our hearts be held in the embrace of unending love.
You into a moment of prayer. Just breathing deeply into the space where you are in this moment. Feeling your body in your chair or on your couch or on the floor, wherever you are in this moment. Feeling yourself held by a love that is greater than all of us. And breathing. Spirit of hope and grace, hold us in these difficult times when our stomachs churn and our knees buckle as we consider a future for ourselves and our beloveds that is impacted by climate change. Help us to embody grace and understanding. When we bear witness to stronger storms, wildfires, famine, and our anxiety places nefarious motives on others in the fight, help us to embody grace and understanding. When we see inequity and injustice in the ways climate solutions are enacted, and our anger clips our words and in on our keyboards, help us to embody grace and understanding. When we are worn down by trying to be the change we want to see in the world, and our weariness shows up as ambivalence and inaction, help us to embody grace and understanding. Spirit of hope and grace, help us. Help us return again and again to the infinite source of grace and understanding that you provide. May it be so, and amen. As we enter into the silence together, those who are mourning a loss or marking the anniversary of a loss are invited to rise in body and or spirit and share their names in the chat if you are online.
Wow, thank you, choir. It was beautiful. Sing, be, live, see, peace, but also dark, stormy, scorched earth, war, again, torn heart. How do we hold both visions at the same time? Cedar Lane's Environmental Justice Ministry and Ecosystems Study Group have been considering watching and discussing the new essay film called Once You Know. Once You Know. I mean, the title alone gives me chills. The trailer, tears. I can't imagine the movie. Oof. But unlike most films about our predicament, our unsustainable growth and consumption, and symptoms of geopolitical conflict, inequities, pandemic, and climate catastrophe, and more, films that mostly just shout preemptive warnings. Instead, this film, it seems, takes as its starting point the question, what if all is already lost? What if? What if? What if economic growth goals of infinite growth on a finite planet with massive, cheap, and frankly unreplaceable fossil fuels, hundreds of millions of years in the making, and only 100 or so in the taking? Such that conflict and climate and other effects are already here and will end in social collapse? What if? What if? As one of our study group's guests, author Richard Heinberg, asks in the film, are we better off not knowing? Are we better off just thinking that technology will save the day and knowing deep down that it's only just one very small part? Are we better off not having a seventh principle that says we are part of the interdependent web of all existence? Would we be better off? I hope the answer is a resounding, that's right, thank you. Phew. Yes, instead, we can educate ourselves on our interdependent web, on our true and full predicament, on what we need to or can do about it, both as individuals and as a society. And once we know, we will reach out to others across the aisle, across all ages, genders, backgrounds, and we will teach and act and learn and repeat. And we will sing our vision of the future and be and live the change we want to see, so that at the end of the day, no matter what, we will be at peace.
In your teal hymnal, please find hymn 1064. Please rise in body and or spirit to sing hymn 1064, Blue Boat Home. Below I feel no motion, standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean. Still my dry land heart can say, I've been sailing all my life now, never harbor or port have I known. Wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home. Sun may sail and moon my rudder as I ply the starry sea, leaning over the edge in wonder, casting questions into the deep, drifting here with my ship's companions, all we kindred pilgrim souls, making our way by the light of the heavens in our beautiful blue boat home. I give thanks to the waves upholding me, ever great winds urging me on. Breathe the infinite sea before me, sing the sky my sailor song. I was born upon the fathoms, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home.
That was beautiful. Every Sunday during worship, we take up an offering, and it's good to remind ourselves from time to time that this offering is symbolic as well as practical. We know that it is through financial giving that we build our budget and fund our mission and ministries of worship and religious education, pastoral care, social justice. We pay our staff and professional religious leaders, and finance the comfort and beauty of our beautiful grounds. We pass the plate during our worship service to make a community expression of gratitude for the blessings of abundance and to visibly bring into this space the harvest at this most cherished hour of our week. Our offering says that the act of giving is as essential to our spiritual well-being as anything else we do on Sunday mornings. I have a mentor who says that if you want to know what you truly value, what truly matters to you, look at your checkbook and your calendar. So I invite you to look at those things today and in this week, and to see how you might bring your life in alignment with your values. We're sharing our offering today with the Unitarian Universalist Legislative Ministry of Maryland. It's a statewide action network of Unitarian Universalists who work to educate, engage, and mobilize UUs to advocate for specific issues before the Maryland General Assembly. This year, one of the main pieces of legislation they supported was the Climate Solutions Now Act of 2022. This legislation particularly impacts children and youth in the way schools will be constructed, as well as providing them with access to training for green jobs for the future. To that end, the children of Cedar Lane and Unitarian Universalist children across the state mobilized to tell their elected representatives to vote for the Climate Solutions Now Act and to create a livable planet. In a moment, we're going to show some postcards that were created by our pre-K to fourth graders in a virtual family chapel earlier this year, followed by UU children and youth from across Maryland urging lawmakers to pass this bill. Rosie and Eleanor urged you, act locally. When we act locally, we then work on the state. This is an opportunity to work at the state level, and then we push nationally. Please enjoy this video and know that if you'd like to see more inter-congregation faith formation, programming like this, we hope you will make this generous offering today. Know that there's many ways that you can give. You can give by the electronic means of our modern times, text, online giving, or PayPal, or QR code. Thank you. Today's offering will now be gratefully received.
What do you want to see in the future of Maryland?
Definitely better air.
I want Maryland to switch to clean, renewable energy.
To take care of birds and other animals.
To protect these rivers being polluted.
Possess turtles. Protect the planet.
This is the Maryland that I want.
Thank you.
Well, I think it's fine building jumbo planes or taking a ride on a cosmic train. Switch on summer from a slot machine. Yes, get what you want if you want, 'cause you can get anything. know we come a long way. We're changing day to day. But tell me, where do the children play? Well, you roll on roads over fresh green grass for your lorry loads, pumping petrol gas. And you make them long and you make them tough, but they just go on, and it seems you can't get off. I know we come a long way, we're changing day to day. But tell me, where do the children play? Well, you crack the sky, scrapers fill the air. But will you keep on building higher till there's no more room up there? Will you make us laugh, or will you make us cry? Will you tell us when to live, and will you tell us when to die? I know we come a long way, we're changing day to day, but tell me, where do the children play?
Think about, where will the children play? But let me tell you about Halat. The city sits at the confluence of 3 rivers and an ocean. This places it in the migratory path of several species of butterflies and hummingbirds as they travel north and south and back again. Oh, and let me tell you about the people. In Halat, anyone can earn auntie-hood. This is a city where numberless aspirations can be filled. Halat bursts with celebration. Each person is allowed to be their full and beautiful self. The people of Halat love their children and honor honest and clever labor. People live long and richly with good health for as long as fate and choice and medicine permits. Every child knows opportunity, and every parent has a life. The farmers, merchants, and technologers work together, and by all 3 groups' efforts does this city prosper. The management of soil and water and chemistry, they're intricate arts, as you know. But here, they have been perfected. Here in Halat, there is no hunger, not among the people, and not the migrating birds or butterflies when they dip down to taste the savory nectar. And so this is Halat, a city whose inhabitants simply care for one another. That's the city's purpose. That's what they believe. Not merely to generate revenue or energy or products, but to shelter and nurture the people who do those things. By now, if you're like me, your mouth is watering and your mind is in the clouds, and you're asking, where is this city, Halat, and how do I get there? How do we get to paradise? The truth is, the Europeans who invaded this land, the land that we now know as the US, they thought they had found paradise, and maybe they had. Yet instead of cherishing it as God's creation, they pillaged it, dominated, and consumed the land and the people who are already living here. In their book, Saving Paradise, How Christianity Traded Love of This World for Crucifixion and Empire, Rita Nakashima Brock and Rebecca Parker interrogate the narrative of lost paradise and individualism that are at the very heart of mainstream American cultural norms. They actually point to two of our Unitarian forefathers, both revered in and beyond Unitarian Universalism, Henry David Thoreau and Ralph Waldo Emerson. They lift those two gentlemen up as people who we need to problematize as we explore the American history of paradise and individualism. And we need to explore the story, our American story of paradise and individualism, deeply if we are going to figure out how to get to Halat. Now, in full disclosure, I have to say I grew up only a 20-minute ride from Walden Pond, where Thoreau wrote his famous essay and protested against the Spanish-American War. In my New England culture of origin, the story of rugged individualism perpetuated by Thoreau was celebrated, honored, just taken as a given. It was such an insidious part of my culture that I never thought to question it. If I had a cold, which I often did as a child, an adult was more likely to say to me, "If Thoreau could survive in the wilderness, you can handle a sniffle," than they were to hand me a tissue. And while I swam in the idyllic and peaceful holy ground of Walden Pond, it never occurred to me as a child that even in Thoreau's time, it was not so far off the beaten path as to qualify as wilderness. And he regularly had friends and family members come to visit. It was rumored that while he was in self-exile in Walden Pond, his mother still did his laundry. So I say this not to shame the sweet and loving relationship between a mother and a son, but to point out that even the founders of the narrative of individualism were actually in relationship with other humans and in relationship with the natural world. Brock and Parker explain Henry David Thoreau searched for the wilderness that his own Puritan forebears and mine had raised, nostalgic for the very thing his culture and ancestors had disregarded. Walden, the essay, is the product of a distinctly Protestant lineage that looks for paradise as a lost primordial wilderness, or a longed-for new world that will transcend this one. And Emerson went a step further. Instead of a temporal, material, or historical sense of an innocent past and a redeemed future, say Brock and Parker, he created a spiritual structure for the individual soul to roam in its own interior, immaterial, natural space. Emerson reduced paradise to the solitary soul, capable of removing everything that troubled it. So today, with that legacy, fossil fuel companies, lawmakers, and other corporations are relying on that unquestioned American cultural story of rugged individualism and nostalgia of lost paradise to stall progress on sustainable climate solutions and continue to prioritize profits over people. In one episode of the New York Times podcast, The Argument, the host, James Costin, explores with climate activists, Genevieve Gunther and David Wallace-Wells, what you as an individual can actually do to help climate change. But before they tell us, what we as individuals can do to reduce climate change, they share a hard truth. Here it is. The oil company, BP, took the legitimate academic concept of carbon footprint and created a multi-million-dollar campaign to, and I'm quoting, change the discourse and make everyone feel responsible for causing the climate crisis, but also to feel responsible for solving it by doing things like no longer driving, no longer flying, no longer eating meat, or turning off lights. But, Gunther says, this is impossible. Every single one of us, if every single one of us brought our emissions down to zero, we would not halt global heating, as Eleanor already told us. The fossil fuel industry wants us to feel helpless and feel overwhelmed, and to shift our attention away from political action. However, Gunther and Wallace Wells warn us against a cynical self-absolution. So here's where I confess. I bought into the individualism. I buy sustainable household goods from a company that delivers them to my house on a monthly basis. I drive an electric vehicle. I recycle, and I use a bamboo toothbrush. These are my acts of personal penance. More accurately, they're a coping mechanism for me, my bargaining as I work through the stages of grief in my personal grief process of living through an unprecedented climate crisis. And more confession, sometimes I forget to bring my reusable grocery bags. Actually, pretty consistently, I forget to bring my reusable grocery bags, and I end up using the plastic ones. I do eat meat, and sometimes I use single-use plastics. Sometimes I forget to turn off the light, and once in a while, my children leave the doors to the outside open while the AC is on. As a person who came of age in the late 90s and early 2000s in the US, as BP was developing and disseminating their false narrative of personal responsibility, lowering my personal carbon footprint has been both a source of shame and guilt, and sometimes a source of smugness and unexamined privilege. So how was BP able to insert a carbon footprint narrative into its carbon footprint narrative into the actual legitimate and academic use of the term? Good question. By relying on our collective American cultural narrative of individualism and paradise lost. If there's no way for us to get back to the beautiful and Eden-like setting of the world that European invaders encountered, then we must, in their narrative, accept a polluted and dystopic future, which we as individuals in their narrative created because we weren't good enough, pious enough, or austere enough. Meanwhile, the owners of these companies get to live in a different reality than the rest of us as part of the 1%, immune to many of all the consequences of climate change due to their enormous wealth. But we don't have to accept the narrative of individualism and lost paradise. As Eleanor said, our Unitarian Universalism calls us to something greater and deeper. The oil companies don't get to tell us how the future goes. What we can do to fight climate, what can we as individuals do to fight climate change? We can imagine a different way. We can imagine a different future. It's so easy to get bogged down in the desperate and apocalyptic predictions about how terrible climate change is and will be. It is absolutely terrible. It's terrifying and can cause you to freeze. It causes me to freeze. The only antidote to the fear and terror of climate change is imagination. Artists, authors, musicians, storytellers empower us to imagine a new way, just as Afrofuturist N.K. Jemisin does in her collection of short stories, How Long Till Black Future Month. Jemisin is the one who painted the canvas in your mind that you have come to know as Halat. Those are her words that you're reliving in your mind as you imagine a new way of being. Like most Afrofuturists, her short story, The Ones Who Stay and Fight, call us to a future that centers love, that centers beauty, and celebrates humanity in all of its mess. I'd love to invite you back to Halat, but before I do, let's consider the words of Brock and Parker one more time. We can come to know the world as paradise when our hearts and souls are reborn through the arduous and tender task of living rightly with one another and with the earth. Generosity, nonviolence, and care for one another are the pathways into transformed awareness. Knowing that paradise is here and now is a gift that comes to those who practice the ethic of paradise. This way of living is not utopian. It does not spring simply from the imagination of a better world, but from the profound embrace of this world. It does not begin with knowledge or hope. It begins with love. Now, because we've been so programmed, and it takes a while to deprogram, I know that you still want to know, what can you as an individual do to stop climate change? So here's what the guests on the Argument podcast suggested. But you actually already heard these things from our very own UU youth. So I'm just repeating what they said. Vote. Vote in every single election. Research political candidates and vote based on their actions, not their promises. Then create relationships with them to hold them accountable while they are in office. Talk about climate change. Talk about it in the place where it feels actually the most awkward and uncomfortable. If you feel awkward and uncomfortable and feel that little knot in your stomach, that's when you want to talk about climate change. And leverage your time, money, and network to support organizations that are fighting for climate justice. The podcast guest specifically mentioned supporting Extinction Rebellion, an organization with whom Cedar Lane already has a connection. How might you, as an individual, deepen your connection with that organization? Now back to Halat. The people of Halat are not naive believers in good intentions as the solution to all ills. No, there are no worshipers of mere tolerance here in Halat, no desperate grovelers for that grudging pittance of respect, which is diversity. Halatians are learned enough to understand what must be done to make the world better. They are learned enough to understand what must be done to make the world better. And they are pragmatic enough to actually enact it. As Brock and Parker remind us, paradise is not something lost, but something we can find every day as we attend to the arduous and tender task of living rightly with one another and the earth. Like Halatians, we in this room, online, we do understand what must be done to make the world better. Now we must be pragmatic enough to actually enact it. May it be so. Amen, and blessed be.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue, clouds of white, the bright blessed day and the dark sacred night. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of the people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. I hear babies cry, I watch them grow. They'll learn so much more than I'll ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
We'll leave you today with some last closing words from Brock and Parker and from Saving Paradise. To know paradise in this life is to enter a multi-dimensional spiritual material reality, an interstitial space. Paradise is human life restored to its divinely infused dignity and capacity, and it is a place of struggle with evil and injustice, requiring the development of wisdom, love, nonviolence, and responsible use of power. Paradise can be experienced as spiritual illumination of the heart, mind, and senses, felt in moments of religious ecstasy, and it can be known in the ordinary life lived with reverence and responsibility. Paradise is not a place free of suffering or conflict, but it is a place in which spirit is present and love is possible. May you find paradise today and every day. Go in peace.